Hey guys, back with another Maplestory video here. This time, just a quick recap of some PRs that I hit this week post Damien update. Before I get into this video where I want to talk about Lotus to help more people get clears and just perform better and do more DPS in Lotus, I want to talk about my podcast, Echoing Thoughts Podcast. I just came out with episode number 11 where I had my first two guests, Xhaniie and Nageling, my Emperor Guild buddies, my guys. We just chat about Maple. We just talk about the Absolab Damien update. We talk about new builds from BA to going inherent chaos route, just talking about winners and losers, a lot of discussion. My first guest, I hope you guys like it. Check it out. I'll post it in the comments below, in the description below. But now into this video, I want to talk about Lotus, just a post 2023, post Damien update guide. I've made one before. I'll post it in the description if you want to look it down as well. But this is things I've learned since then, right? And I think step number one is, I've talked about before, is I made the mistake of going mini vertical. For some reason, I wanted to see what my lines were hitting, and it was honestly just too much clutter. I don't recommend it. I highly recommend mini blade just to get that out of the way. It doesn't matter what numbers you're hitting, as long as you do, stay alive and do damage. And then here, kind of in phase one, the most important thing I think that helps me is that I record my runs, or have someone in your team record your runs so you can always watch back. I think a lot of the times people who die frequently feel like it just happens. Feel like they had no way of getting out of certain situations. It was just bombs, or, other people didn't clear the bombs fast enough, or, it just was bad timing. And I think that is the wrong mentality to have. For example, I died twice in this phase one, and I feel like they were fluky deaths, but obviously deaths that I could have prevented. And just having that mindset and ability to kind of recognize and be self-aware about, you can always improve and get better and avoid deaths, is super important, not just for you individually, for the team as well. Right, so here I think I'm going to die twice in pretty much the next 30 seconds. The first one's a fluky missed jump, but again, it could have been easily avoided. And I think that one of the things that I made a mistake here, right there I die, was I didn't put my Will of Urda and my Hero's Will on my bar. Highly recommend that, especially if you don't have an iframe. Just throw it out there. You have to use it preemptively to avoid these bombs. Like right here, I could have used it as I saw that bomb coming, but I got stunned by the bomb, ended up dying again. I think being able to recognize that it's a kind of use it or lose it type of situation. If it helps you, saves you a life or two, then it's worth it, right? And I think there's always room to have it on your skill wheel, especially with type B. And I think just being able to, have that accountability, not saying, oh, someone didn't clear bombs, or, bombs killed me, it is what it is. I think being able to counter, you have counters with Will of Urda and Hero's Will, and being able to use it appropriately just to survive once or twice, it goes a long way, not just for your DPS in the run, but also for end up clearing and helping the team overall. But you can see in phase one, we have a few single deaths here and there, but our phase one is pretty clean, right? I think if you want to watch any one of these players in here on my team, they do a really good job of surviving on their own. We go into it with 6 deaths. A lot of them were individual deaths, so it's definitely, that number is worse than it really is. But I think everyone on our team has really come a long way when it comes to just taking it upon themselves and surviving, using the portals, navigating, avoiding bombs, things like that to do the maximizer DPS. And that's why our time was so fast in that phase one. That's why we did really, really well. And I think a lot of people need to understand that DPS isn't the issue for most of these team people now. With the cap increase, with the increase in necro physical attack, it's really just about the deaths. Those deaths add up. And when 1 or 2 people die in phase one especially, then, bombs start to overwhelm you. And then time goes by and you run out of time and things like that. And you rely on more on, the pressure builds in phase 2 and phase 3. So you can see my team is cranking 3.5 minutes into phase 3. This is, look at all that clutter on my screen. Get that out of the way. Just use mini blade. I highly recommend. And then in phase 2 and phase 3, one of the most important things is, obviously dodging, but trying to minimize movement, right? Understanding that you do your most damage when you're standing still and you're not dashing or teleporting back and forth. And what we do to maximize that is we communicate benediction, shell, that I talked about before in all my videos, and my synchro, so that one, as the aggro, I'm keeping the boss facing one way, and your aggro can do the same if they're able to do that. And two, it's just everyone can just stand still and do DPS, right? They're not kind of going back and forth. The boss isn't flipping directions, facing left, facing right, knocking people back here and there. You can just, it just allows people to min-max their damage, stand still, not have to move and reposition. And that's how our DPS is constantly, consistent. Even though, purple orb phases, things like that, a lot of things that we can't control. I think one of the things that we do really well is that we make sure that we position the boss in the middle as well, facing the middle. I think one of the things that we worked on is that even though I'm facing it in the middle, or our aggro pony now is facing it in the middle, that we don't want to face it in the corners where you get knocked back and then that person gets wombo comboed with a bus that they can't avoid. They stuck in the corner, things like that. They can't all cure in time. So I think communicating that is key, keeping it in the middle, but also making sure that Lotus is facing the middle, so that Lotus is always, you're getting knocked back and forth in the middle, and Lotus is, everyone else isn't getting knocked back, or they're repositioning accordingly. And I think repositioning is super, super important. Just little things like that combined with shell, benediction, synchro, things like that, allowing you, shell is one of the most underrated skills that people don't really utilize enough, but right here, it's up. You see it's at 12, 11, 10 seconds, and no one's getting hit. Everyone's guarding. No one's getting knocked back. I see no one gets knocked back by that wire attack. That's because of shell, and it's super important. And then when you combine that with benediction, which is going to come up in a little bit, that is just more uptime where people aren't having to use all cures, getting knocked back. And that's something that we learned through trial and error, through a lot of practice and reps. And you can see benediction is up now. I highly recommend you have your buff bars open, so that, you can see when benediction is up and down, shell is up and down, things like that. Maybe even your heaven's door is up. It just, I think a lot of the times a lot of classes skills are pretty simple, right? Presets here and there. So you don't really have to look at your skill wheel. And dodging, it's pretty hard to miss the giant buses and dodging those things, especially if you use mini blade, like I mentioned. That's not really an issue too much. But having those buff bars open allows you to see when you maybe can save an iframe here and there. You don't have to overlap dark sight or your whatever iframe you have with the shell or benediction like I try to do here. So right here we have the platform phase, just going to stun it up. That's pretty straightforward, but I hope this helps. I hope these kind of little tips and tricks that I've learned along the way helps other people clear and do more damage, and eventually just progress, right? Get those coins, get those Absolab attempts in, get those Absolab pieces, and pump out the damage. Now, shout out to my guy Pony, beat me in boss damage. He cranked. He did like 53, 54 build DPM. This was a PR for me in boss damage, but really proud of the team. This was a PR time as well. We're just getting better and better. I hope you guys are too. I hope this helps. Let me know in the comments. Appreciate it if you check out the podcast as well on whatever platform you watch podcasts. Thank you for watching. I hope you like it. I'll see you next time.